This term in humanities, we've been taking part in the Big History project. In this video, I'm going to share with you my Big History experience and what I learned during this term. First of all, what is Big History? The Big History project is an attempt to answer important questions such as, how was the universe created? Where did humans originate from? And how was the stars and our world, Earth, created? It's a fusion of astronomy, chemistry, biology, and history to give the best scientific explanations possible for these questions. Now, one of the first things we learned in Big History was that the timeline of the universe is broken up into different thresholds. Like the first threshold is the Big Bang, when the universe started, and this goes through to when life began on Earth, all the way up to threshold 8, the modern revolution. Now we learnt that to create a new threshold, you need two very important things. The first is ingredients, and the second is the right Goldilocks conditions. Goldilocks conditions are like you can't have too much of one thing and too much of another. The conditions need to be perfect, and you need the right ingredients to trigger this new reaction. Another cool site that we visited was the Scale of the Universe website. This is a really cool website that provides a scale of nearly everything in the universe and compares it to each other in size. It's actually really handy, and I learnt a lot of stuff that I didn't know before. For example, I didn't know that a giant earthworm was actually bigger than a human, and I also didn't know that Asia here is actually bigger than Pluto by quite a big bit. So yeah, it's a really handy website that was really cool to use and just explore. Another cool thing that we learned at the start of Big History was each culture's different origin stories. Now, origin stories are each culture's I guess theory of how humans were created and how life began on Earth. Here I've got the Native American origin story, which suggests that we're all living on the back of a giant turtle. So that's pretty cool. The origin stories was really cool because you got to see what other cultures thought about the start of the universe. Now, the first threshold we studied in Big History was the first threshold 1, the Big Bang. The Big Bang theory suggests that the universe was created 13.7 billion years ago in an event called the Big Bang. We used this model here, which is a diagram of basically an entire timeline of the universe from the Big Bang all the way up to the present day. And it's really handy because right here we have the Big Bang, and this timeline shows all the way up from the very first seconds of the Big Bang. So like here we have when protons and neutrons were created, and when hydrogen and helium were produced. So it's a really cool, really handy picture, I guess, diagram. So we use that a lot. And we also learn a lot about several different scientists that changed our view on the universe. One of the important scientists we learned about was Claudius Ptolemy, who began the theory that lasted for nearly 1500 years, that the Earth was the center of the universe, and that the sun and the other planets all circled around the Earth. We also learn about other scientists such as Isaac Newton, who is famous for his creation of the laws of motion and physics. We also in this threshold, we also did an activity which we called the letter to Mav. Basically, this is as if we're explaining the Big Bang to someone who's never heard of it before, or like a younger student in junior school. It's a pretty fun activity because you have to kind of explain everything a lot more. Sadly, we weren't able to go over thresholds 2 and 3, which were the creation of the stars and the elements. Basically, this threshold explains how the stars and the elements were formed, as well as all the galaxies and other planets. It's kind of disappointing because this threshold actually seemed quite interesting, but hopefully we'll be able to cover that maybe in a later year. After that, we moved on to the fourth threshold, which is our solar system and Earth. In this threshold, we learn a lot about plate tectonics. So here we learn about the continental plates and the oceanic plates, and the 4 different types of collisions. So there's the normal collision boundaries, where 2 plates just come together, and this usually causes mountain ranges to be produced. Then there's convergent boundaries, which also create mountains, volcanoes, and underwater ridges, and they can happen between continental and oceanic plates, and oceanic and continental. There are also divergent boundaries, where 2 plates actually pull apart from each other. This creates rifts, valleys, and spreading of the ocean as well. And there are also transform boundaries, where 2 plates try to slide side by side, and eventually just slip loose in a big jerk, which this is the main cause for earthquakes. The next threshold after that was threshold 5, which is life. We in this threshold, we learn about the first life on Earth, and the 4 crucial elements that are required by any living organism. These requirements are metabolism, homeostasis, reproduction, and adaptation. Metabolism is the ability of a living organism to make or take energy from its surrounding. Homeostasis is the living organism's ability to regulate its internal condition. Reproduction is the organism's ability to create a copy of itself to keep it alive, basically. And adaptation is the organism's ability to change from generation to generation to become better suited to its environment. We also learn about the evolution of bacteria and cells that eventually developed into more complex life forms, such as fish, amphibians, and other complex creatures like mammals and birds. And we learnt about that on this cool video here in the Big History website, which basically went through from the start of cells all the way up to dinosaurs and humans. We also did quite a few activities on the 5th threshold life. At first, we were asked to create a picture of what we thought depicted life and non-life. So here I've done, the usual, just people, ground, grass, trees, birds, clouds, the sun. And in no life, I did some more ordinary, everyday objects. Well, not the knife and the gun, but a phone, a hat, birthday cake. So yeah, it was just pretty cool. Got us to think of what is actually living and what's not living. The next lesson after that, we also had this activity where we made the tree of life. So basically, we just had to model the tree of life. So everything started with cells, and it spread into algae or sponges, and then they broke off into fish and worms and legged animals, which eventually developed into mammals, and they broke off into insects and just mammals, and fish kept on developing up through to amphibians and reptiles, and they turned into the dinosaurs, and then birds as we know them today. And the last activity we did was creating our own DNA strand out of licorice and marshmallows. This is a pretty fun activity, and it helped us understand the DNA structure a bit more with all the different elements in it. Now, DNA is very important. It makes up everything, it defines who we are. So it was a cool activity to be working on. And last of all, we had our gala day. This is probably my favorite bit of the Big History project, as we were allowed to choose any point of time or history and make our stall based on it. So my group decided to choose knights, which is very cool. So we based our stall more on the fighting side of knights. So we made our stall a castle, and we had archery stalls set up and sword fights. So it was a really good piece of fun. My favorite part of the Big History project. And our gala day stall, the knights, it fits into the 7th threshold, which unfortunately we weren't able to learn about. But basically, this threshold covers agriculture and civilization. So it covers when humans began to learn how to farm, and when they set up towns and cities on the edge of rivers and water sources, and built civilizations. I think it would have been cool to learn more about this threshold, as it was actually quite interesting, because I'm more interested in the the life and early humans in civilizations like Romans and Greeks, rather than the stars and elements and stuff. But yeah, unfortunately we weren't able to learn about that. So yeah, that was basically all. That's been our big history journey. It was a fun topic, and yeah, I'd enjoy doing it again. So yeah, that's all.